If you open your calendar right now and you say, I don't have time, or you look at your Stripe balance and say, I can't afford that, then I'm gonna be honest with you. You're not thinking like a millionaire. You're thinking like a prisoner. Because wealthy founders, well, they don't ask, how much does it cost? They ask, what's the ROI if this works? This one shift will either set you free or keep you stuck in a prison disguised as a business. And when this clicked for me, I went from working 15-hour days in a business that stole my life to building 2 systemized companies that now run with less than 4 hours of my time each day, giving me the freedom to grow a profitable media empire, travel the world, and never worry about money again. And so I'm gonna show you exactly how I did it. I'm Matt Gray. I build companies that scale without me because I learned the hard way that hustle doesn't equal freedom. Today, I help founders replace chaos with systems and scale personal brands that sell while they sleep. Today, I run Founder OS, where we install systems for founders doing anywhere from $30,000 to $500,000 per month. We've worked with everyone from rising creators to 8-figure brands, helping them scale without burning out. But this expertise didn't come easily. It came from hard-earned lessons building and scaling my own companies. So here's a bit of the backstory. Back in 2015, Herb was doing about $140K a month in revenue. Solid business, but we'd hit a plateau. For context, Herb is a cannabis media company I built into the largest cannabis media company in the world with over 14 million followers. We create content, have a highly engaged community, and develop enterprise tech to help convert cannabis consumers into customers. I was at this founder dinner in Los Angeles when I overheard this conversation, and someone had mentioned that they had connections with several NFL and NBA players who were advocates for cannabis, especially for pain management and recovery. A light bulb went off. Man, I've got to meet these people. These aren't just any athletes, right? These are household names with millions of followers who could completely transform how people viewed cannabis. The next morning, I reached out and discovered that we could go and get these 3 NFL stars for a professional video series about their cannabis consumption and how it helped their journey as an athlete. The production would be top tier, the kind of content that looks like it belongs in a Netflix documentary, not some YouTube video. The price tag, $29K. When I brought this to my chief financial officer, he had a heart attack. Matt, that's almost half of our monthly revenue. No, we can't justify that kind of expense. What if these players back out? What if this doesn't even convert? To be honest, his concerns were valid. We weren't flush with cash. Spending $29K could actually be seen as irresponsible. But I sat with the decision for a couple days and I realized that we were asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking, can we afford this? I started asking, what's the long-term value of associating our brand with these respected athletes? How would this change our brand positioning in this industry? And what's the cost of staying where we are for another 6 months? When I reframed these questions, the decision became obvious. I called up the production company and I said, yes, let's move forward. The day that we released that first video, the series was picked up by Sports Illustrated and a dozen other massive cannabis publications. Our social following over that next month grew by 127,000 people. Here's where it also gets interesting, and what most founders miss about ROI thinking. The real return, it wasn't just traffic or sales. It was in brand positioning. Before this NFL series, we were just seen as another cannabis media company. After, we were the premium brand connecting mainstream culture with cannabis education. Within 3 months, our monthly revenue jumped to over $240,000. And within 6 months, we landed our first major deal with a company that had been previously refusing to go and enter the cannabis space. Their exact words were, Matt, we watched that series with those NFL players. You've really changed our view on how we look at this industry, and we're ready to move forward. That $29K investment generated over $700,000 in direct revenue within the first year. More importantly, it completely repositioned our brand in the market. I see this pattern repeating itself time and time again with founders that are trying to hit that $100K per month mark. They start playing defense with their money instead of playing offense with their money. When I talk to founders considering a $50,000 mastermind or a $30,000 content series, I always ask them, are you calculating the full ROI? Not just the immediate return, but the doors that might open, what positioning it might create for you, what opportunities then become possible. Most aren't. They're stuck in expense thinking. They're thinking small. That's too much money for what it is. Or, I can't afford that. But at $100K per month, you're not paying for what it is. You're paying for what makes it possible. That NFL content series wasn't just videos. It was the key that unlocked an entirely new level for our business. The $29,000 wasn't an expense. It was the admission price to a different league. And that's the shift that separates founders who stay stuck at $100K per month and those that end up scaling to $500K per month. So when you're considering that next big investment, that high-ticket coach, that mastermind, that premium content series, and it seems too expensive, I want you to ask yourself, what's the real cost of staying where I am right now? And what becomes possible if this actually works? That question has made me millions over the years. Let's get into the core problem I see. Most founders stay broke not because they don't work hard enough, but because they make decisions like broke people. Here's how to tell which mindset you're in. Expense thinking asks questions like, how much does it cost? Can I do this myself? Let's wait until we're ready. That seems too expensive. ROI thinking, on the other side of things, asks, what's the upside if this works? What does this free me up to focus on? What would this make possible? How fast can we test it? Expense thinking is really going to focus on preserving what you have. It's that scarcity mindset. ROI thinking focuses on multiplying what you have. It's that abundance mindset. Here's the kicker. Your decisions are your destiny. If every time an opportunity comes your way, you pause and say, that's too expensive, what you're really saying is, I don't believe I'll get a return. Back in 2018, I was struggling with a major decision for Herb. We were doing around $285K in monthly revenue, which sounds impressive from the outside, but we'd hit a serious plateau. Traffic was stagnant, growth had flatlined, and the cannabis industry was getting more and more competitive every single day. I knew we needed a complete brand overhaul. New design, new website, new content strategy, the works. When I got a quote, it came in at $78,000. At the time, this felt like a massive expense. My immediate reaction was pure expense thinking. It's a lot of money for a rebrand, and we already have a functioning website. We should just be focusing on operations, not pure aesthetics. I spent weeks trying to figure out cheaper alternatives. Freelancers, templates. Could I just do this myself maybe for half as much? Then I had a conversation that changed everything. I was having dinner with my close mentor, Greg, watching the sunset over Lake Ontario, and I asked him about this situation. You know, Greg put down his fork, he looked at me directly and he said, what's the cost of staying the same for another year, Matt? The question hit me like a thunderbolt. I started calculating. My current monthly revenue was $285K. My projected monthly revenue with this rebrand was $450K, and that was just a conservative estimate. The difference was $165K per month. The potential cost of not doing the rebrand was about $1.9 million over a year. And suddenly that $78K investment, it looked completely different. It wasn't an expense, it was an investment with a potential 2,500% return in just 1 year. I was so caught up in how much does this cost that I wasn't thinking about how much will this make us and what's the opportunity cost of inaction. This was expense thinking versus ROI thinking, and it was keeping me small. The next day, I approved the project. Within 3 months, the rebrand was complete. 1 year later, our monthly revenue hadn't just hit that $450K mark. It had exceeded reaching $500,000 per month. The $78K expense ended up generating over $2 million in additional revenue in the first year alone. I've seen this pattern repeat with founders time and time again. When I was building Founder OS, I invested $68,000 in a video production system far earlier than most would consider affordable for a company at our stage. One founder in our community asked me, Matt, how can you justify such an expense as big as that when you're just starting out? I told them it wasn't just an expense, it was a revenue engine. That video system generated over $840,000 in sales in the first 90 days. I've noticed two types of founders. When you see a $68K price tag for joining an elite mastermind, do you think, wow, like that's expensive as hell, I can't justify that? Or if I get just 3 to 4 new high-ticket clients from the connections and strategies, this pays for itself many times over. Founders in Camp 1 ultimately become the bottleneck to their own growth. Founders in Camp 2, on the other side, experience exponential growth because they run more experiments, pursue more opportunities with a high potential for ROI. It's not about being reckless with money. It's about calculating return, not just cost. And this mindset applies beyond business investments. It applies to your time, your energy, your focus. Are you calculating the ROI on how you spend your days, or are you just trying to minimize expenses? The rebrand story was my wake-up call. And since then, I've approached every single decision through the lens of ROI, not expense. And it's transformed not just my businesses, but my entire relationship with resources. So next time you're looking at a significant investment in your business, whether it's hiring a new team member, joining a mastermind, or implementing some new system, don't just ask yourself, how much does this cost? Ask yourself, what's the ROI if this works? And what's the cost if I do nothing? That shift in thinking might be the difference between staying where you are right now and building your dream business. That's the difference between founders who scale and founders who stay stuck. So here's where the rubber hits the road. Let's get tactical. Here's the 4-question system I use to rewire my brain out of expense thinking and then into ROI thinking. Number 1, what's the money multiplier? Most people look at a price tag and they think, can I afford this? That's the wrong question. The right question is, if I put $1 into this, how many dollars will come back to me? Let me show you what I mean. Last year, a founder in our community named Sarah was debating whether to spend $5,000 on a professional video team for her upcoming course launch. Her first thought was, that's expensive. I could just use my iPhone to film this. Then she asked the money multiplier question. If this $5,000 video helps me sell just 5 more courses at $2,000 each, that's a $10,000 return. So she invested the $5,000. The result? She sold 27 more courses than her previous launch. That's $54,000 in additional revenue from a $5,000 investment. That's a 10.8x money multiplier. This isn't about spending money. It's about seeing opportunities where others see expenses. View your business as if you're a portfolio manager. Your role is to identify high ROI investments and then pull the trigger on them fast. 2, what's the cost of waiting? Most founders think delaying a decision saves money, but it doesn't. It costs opportunity. Every day that you wait is a day that you're not making progress. James, a founder friend of mine, was hesitant about hiring a VA for $3,000 a month. I asked him, what's the cost of waiting 90 days to make that hire? And he calculated it. 3 hours saved daily is 270 hours over 90 days. His hourly value on sales calls is $500 an hour, so the potential lost revenue is $135,000. Suddenly that $9,000, which is 3 months at $3K, looked tiny compared to the $135,000 cost of waiting. He made the hire that week. Within 60 days, his revenue increased by $42,000 a month. The real cost wasn't the hire, the real cost was waiting. Question 3 is, what will this free me up to do? This is the question that most founders never ask. When you spend money, you're not just buying a thing, you're buying back your time, and that's your most valuable resource. What you do with your time determines everything. Another founder I know, Michelle, was spending 15 hours weekly on content creation for her design business. She hesitated to hire a content manager for $4,500 a month. So I asked her, if you get these 15 hours back each week, what would you do instead? Her answer was, I'd focus on partnership calls with bigger brands. The math was simple. One partnership deal equals $25,000. One deal per month equals $300,000 per year. A cost of a content manager is $54,000 per year, so that's a 5.5x return. Just by focusing her freed up time on high leverage activities, she'd get this insane return. This isn't just delegation, it's time leverage, turning average hours into golden opportunities. Question number 4 is, can I survive the worst case? Most people focus so much on what might go wrong that they miss what could go right. Smart ROI thinkers ask, if this fails completely, can I survive it? If yes, and the upside is significant, it's almost always worth the risk. Another example, Mark, a founder I know, wanted to launch a high-ticket mastermind but was afraid to invest $20,000 in marketing. The worst case, he loses $20,000. The best case is he enrolls 10 members at $25,000 each and makes $250,000. That's a 12.5x potential return. Could he survive losing $20,000? Yeah. Was a potential $250,000 worth the risk? Absolutely. This isn't reckless, it's calculated courage. Now I want to give you the most powerful shift that changed everything for me. This isn't about just asking better questions. It's about becoming a different kind of founder, a different thinker. Here's the sentence that transformed my entire business. Expense thinkers cut costs to survive. ROI thinkers invest strategically to thrive. I see the difference every single day at FounderOS. The founders who grow the fastest aren't the ones with the best ideas. They're the ones who make decisions differently. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. An expense thinker says things like, I can't afford a team right now, maybe when we hit 100K per month. On the other side of it, an ROI thinker says, I can't afford to not build a team. Each hire should 3x their salary and value. An expense thinker is going to say, let's cut the software budget by 20% to improve our margins. An ROI thinker is going to say, let's invest in software that makes us 5x more efficient and eliminates human error. An expense thinker is going to say, we need to reduce our content budget until our revenue improves. An ROI thinker is going to say, let's double down on the organic content with the highest return and then cut the rest. This identity shift from expense thinking to ROI thinking is what separates good founders from the greatest. One sees costs, the other sees investments. One plays defense, the other plays offense. One stays stuck, the other one scales. There are two currencies in business: money and time. Only one of them is infinite. Every single day, founders make a fatal mistake. They save money, but then they spend time. They DIY their website to save 5K, but then spend 40 hours building it themselves. They handle their own bookkeeping to save $5,000 a month, but waste 6 hours monthly on a task that they hate. They write their own content to save $5,000, but then spend 10 hours creating something that doesn't even convert. Money is renewable. Your time is not. This is the prison that you've built for yourself, and the key to escape it isn't working harder. It isn't even hiring more people. It isn't even making more money. It's changing how you think about money. Stop asking, how much does this cost? Start asking, what's the ROI if this works? Because the real question isn't whether you can afford to invest, it's whether you can afford not to. If you're tired of being the bottleneck in your business, and if you want a business that serves your life instead of consuming it, well, then it's time to install systems that will think for you. That's exactly what we do at FounderOS. We don't just teach theory, it's no BS, no fluff. We help founders build systems that transform how you think, how you work, and how you build. Now, you don't have to choose between success and freedom. You can have both. We have the community, the mentorship. You'll get direct access to me to get all your questions answered and ensure that you get unstuck and able to scale. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, apply to FounderOS below, and I'll see you in the next one.